Okay, it's the morning after. Honestly, I wasn't gearing up to be hit by this. But hey, we constantly over here showing our love. Okay, it's time to get ready for class. And Jerome is like, we just woke up and not once have you said I love you or I love you morning kisses or anything. And Jin said it's a guy that don't do that. But Jerome showed Jin the video he took before of him saying I love you in the morning, teasing Jin because Jin just said he would never do something like that, prompting Jin to be embarrassed and kicked him out of the house. Okay, remember when Van and Farm has problem where Farm is upset with Van because Van doesn't take Farm's feelings seriously? Well, do you remember the night that Van decided not to go home or stay with Jerome or Jane? He decided to stay outside of Farm's apartment. Well, Farm sees him and he stayed there the entire night. Anyways, Farm sees that Van was about to wake, so he got up, went in his room, went back out to take away the blanket, but he left his sanitizer, leaving Van to realize that Farm was actually outside with him. He went to the door because he knows that Farm was at the door and spoke and asked for forgiveness. Honestly, at this point, I feel sorry for Van. Really, I do. I'm actually proud of Farm for once. He actually putting his foot down. We need Van to actually repent or reflect on his actions because if we soften up each time he tries to give us the puppy eyes, then he will never learn. And that's not what we want. Meanwhile, in Jerome's room, Jerome is looking at the three main ingredients to his future problems. The one with the car crash, the note that Jin said left in the future, and then the 30-year cake. And he's trying to figure out what happens, what can he do to prevent all of this from happening. And to be honest, I'm trying to figure out when are you gonna tell Jin about this problem because like he's in everything in the dark right now about his mother. You know about his mother, about this whole thing. But while thinking about those three ingredients, he decided that he wants to add another ingredient. You know, the one where Jane is in the hospital and he dies. But then he started having a headache. I feel like every time he tries to write things to figure out how to prevent them, he gets an headache. But that's beside the problem. Let's be honest. Seeing him dead in the car was worse enough, let alone drawing it. So Jerome decided not to add that on the list, and he decided to just forget about it. Okay, in class, the only person that got late in class was Van. Van said he had to go home, take a shower, change his clothes so he can get here. That's why he's late. But everyone knows Van's house is far. And while talking, he gets to say that, oh, he's lonely sometimes. The way he's talking is indicating to Farm saying that, life is lonely. Okay, so they still continue to kind of tease Van by telling him how single he is and how he's never like that with exes because he has so many exes he would have stayed with. And because Farm is there and listening to everything, he decided to get up because one, he is not about to sit there and hear someone says somebody about the ex of someone he likes, and two, he kind of feels guilty at one point. Farm, hearing the situation and the conversation and where it's going, decided to leave. Van sees that Farm is upset with him because he knows he's the reason that Farm is upset with him. He started crying, and Jerome says it's the first time he saw Van ever cried, let alone cried about anyone. Van says that he really does care about Farm, but he fears that his ways will treat Farm the way he used to treat his exes, and he doesn't want that because he knows Farm is very caring and he does care about this relationship, but attitude wise, he doesn't want Farm to get hurt anymore. Okay, so Jin and Jerome went back home, not to Jin condo, but actual home because Jin, the baby mommy, is obsessed with his mother. I love how he's attached to his mother. He's like, I want to see who you secretly dating. Okay, while Jin and his mother is communicating, we see that Jerome is staring into space when he's actually getting visions of that car crash, knowing that many years after, 2 years after, the mother of Jin will die. They keep constantly calling him until he snaps out of it. Jin sees that something is off, but Jerome won't tell him. Now, after Jin's mother convinces Jin to go to his room and go take a shower, Jerome did not leave. He's supposed to go back home, but then Jin's mother sees that Jerome is not leaving, and Jerome looked at her and asked her when she is going to tell Jin about his father. Okay, so Jerome and Jin's mother decided to sit down and communicate. Jerome told Jin's mother is concerned and told him why he started saying that he knows about the whole situation. He literally tells her everything. He tells her that he can see the future. He tells her about the death. He tells her about everything that he knows. At first, the mother didn't believe, but seeing that he convinced her that it's real, she herself doesn't know what to believe, what to say, because all of this information is so new to her. Plus, she has secrets of her own to tell her own son. Then we see Van trying his final attempt to get to communicate with Farm, which this time actually works. He gets to enter the room to talk to him, but he only said that he wants to come to pack his luggage because he wants to go home. Which, fun note, he said that he doesn't even live that far. He just made people think that he lived that far. Okay, so Van is there, started packing. He saw the socks that Farm bought for him. He started talking about his life. Then he started saying that when his parents died, Farm was the only person that's been beside him, but yet he keeps hurting him, and it's something that he doesn't want, but it's always a habit. He started crying. Let me tell you something. GMMTV, I thought I saw all the criers in your facility, but I guess you've been holding out on us because Java, good. Let me tell you something. Good. Even I know deep down that crying got to serve it. This at this point, is this even Farm? So Farm chose to forgive Van again because, let's be honest, his heart cannot take to see the person he likes being crying the way he's crying now. They also agreed to just take things slow and try to make friends in throughout this whole thing, because this whole thing is going too fast. Elsewhere, we see Jerome, who obviously could not sleep at his own place, which, fun fact, I noticed since this drama started, we barely see the parents at home, mostly in the daytime, but never in the nighttime. Anyways, if you notice, this is pretty much the same place they first kissed, Jin and Jerome, not the future, but the current. Then we see Jin comes and he sat beside Jerome. Jerome started laying beside him. Immediately, Jin knows something is off and asks Jerome what the problem is, but Jerome won't tell him. Then Jin said, is it about the whole future thing? Jerome said it is, but for now, he doesn't want to talk about it right now, which leads us to know there's more to the information, but he won't tell him. Then Jerome, being the good person he is that's good at distracting Jin, diverted the question to something else, like aka changing the subject, and it worked. It worked for some point. Jerome kissed Jin, and Jin is embarrassed because he thinks people might see them, and Jerome tries to kiss him again, being the cute boyfriend he is. This is his way of distracting Jin from thinking about the future, even though Jerome knows the future is very bad, but it's his way of distracting himself. It's himself as well. Okay, back to Van and Farm. Van got his little wish by staying with Farm. Farm packing back his clothes into the condo's wardrobe. Literally, I don't know. Dude, you just got your gateway ticket, the last gateway ticket. You better make that gateway ticket last, because let's be honest, it's your last route. So Van and Farm are getting ready for bed, and Van tells Farm that he will try all his best to make sure that he will never disappoint Farm again, and also try his best to win Farm's heart romantically. I'm hoping that you did good this time, because if you fail, this is your last attempt. and Farm may not be forgiving. Okay, so after their little chill spot is over and they decided to race each other funny because everything's a competition with these two, they got home and Jerome wants to stay with Jin this time again. As always, he wants to stay in Jin's room, but Jin decided that he wants to stay in Jerome's room for once. Jerome knows there are things in his room that he doesn't want Jin to see, like, for example, the three posters that he drew. So he decided to convince him to make him stay. Jerome convinced Jin to let him stay in Jin's room for the moment and promised that after he quote unquote clean his room properly, Jin can stay over, which that's sus, but whatever. So around breakfast time, I don't like that we're getting to see only Jin's mother and not Jerome's parents, but whatever. So we're there having breakfast, and Jerome is eyeing to Jin's mother because let's be honest, they have a secret that they need to tell Jerome. That they need to tell Jin. Jin is seeing this, but he's not saying anything because I don't know what is he gonna say. What you hiding from me? Like they're gonna tell him now. Okay, so since Jerome is fearful of his life and his man's life, he decided that he's convincing Jin to let him drive. Honestly, your parents didn't give you permission to drive, but hey, they didn't say you can't drive any other car, but whatever. Jin gave him the car key to drive. We're gonna get into this why he gave him the car key and why he decided that he wants to drive. Okay, back at the university, Mai is there. Mai is going through the social media and he's shocked because he saw that Van has deleted every people he followed, including his so-called exes, which shocked both Jin and Jerome. Then Van and Farm came and Van explained why he's doing this. He said he wants to start over new and only pursue one person. When he said that, he looked at Farm. Farm said he doesn't want Van to force himself to do something that he is not used to doing or want to do. If that's the case, then he shouldn't be doing this and just go straight to friends. Van says that he doesn't want that because he really does like Farm and he wants this relationship to work, but in order for that, he needs to clear things and be clean, literally just find himself, maybe he needs to go to temple, maybe ordain or something, start over new. That's what I think. Okay, class is over for today. We done our work. Now Van wants to not really celebrate, but once all four of them or five of them, because Mai's there I think, and they want to have lunch, but Jerome has other plans, so he told them that he and Jin won't be joining them, which Jin is shocked because he wanted to have lunch. But seeing that Jerome is looking serious, he decided to decline the lunch. So remember when I said Jerome talked to Jin's mother about the future? Well, they're trying to come up with a way to tell Jin the truth about his parents, about the whole situation. And they kind of come up with one solution. Also, remember when I said Jerome asked Jin to drive his car? Well, the day has come because he drove him all the way to his mother's salon. This is where the plan kicks in. And the plan was to make sure that Jin does not drive. Okay, so while Jerome was driving, Jin was kind of asleep. So Jerome waked Jin and showed Jin the father is inside the boutique. As we all know how the plan works, it did not go as planned. We know how the situation was going to happen, exactly how Jerome sees it. The only difference is different outfits. Jin confronted his mother and he confronted his father, which did not go well. Well, after seeing both of them, he now learns that both mother and father has been secretly seeing each other behind his back. Even though in his head he knows how cruel the father treated him, and even though the mother and father tries to explain themselves why they did what they did, he didn't want to talk about it or didn't want to talk to them. He ready to walk out of the boutique, but was blocked by Jerome. Immediately, Jin knew that Jerome knew about the relationship of his parents and didn't even tell him. Right then and there, Jin said he knows now that he is alone in this world because no one wants to tell him anything, and he found out this on his own. Technically, he didn't, but I get what he's feeling. Okay, so we saw multiple scenarios of what will happen if Jin found out about his parents, it would crash the car. So that is why Jerome decided that he will drive Jin. Jin doesn't want to talk to Jerome, so he promised Jin that he won't say anything throughout the car ride. Once they reached, Jin didn't even say hi, good night, bye. No, he came out, went into the house, and just avoid contact. At this point, Jerome still has the keys to Jin's car. When Jin got home, Jin decided to lock himself into the room and refuse to talk to anyone, including his mother. At this point, I feel it for Jin because the person he loves the most, which is his mother, betrayed him and didn't even tell him anything. While I feel it for the mother as well because she knows the truth, tries to tell Jin, but Jin knows that he hates his father so much, so he would never listen. I think we need to cross things off the list at this point. Anyway, since the crash did not happen, that leaves us with the note, the disappearance with the note thing. So Jerome is making sure that Jin is actually in his room by using his other code of trying to get Jin to answer him. I'm assuming Jerome tries to call him via phone, but that didn't work, so this is the only solution he has left. Okay, it's the next day, and when Jin got down, he saw breakfast was ready for him because his mother made it and also left a note, but he didn't eat it. In reality, you should have covered the food. That's all I'm saying. Just then, Jin got a text from Jerome, but he left that on read. He didn't even reply. Okay, then we see that Jerome is talking to himself, which immediately I thought of Boy Next World. But anyways, this other version of himself said, if you did your best, then that's all that there is to do. Which means, I don't know, I've never seen this part of the vision. What does this all mean? Keep mistaking Jin and Jerome. If you hear me say Jin, you know it's Jerome. If you hear me say Jerome, you know it's Jin. Anyways, after Jerome woke up from his confusing dream, he saw that Jin is in his room, and Jin saw the three little drawings and asked, what does this all mean? So you walked into this room very quiet. Seeing that he can't hide this situation any longer, he decided to tell Jin everything. He tells Jin about the car crash, he tells Jin about his mother dying, he tells Jin about the note of him disappearing, he tells him about returning after when they both turned 30. He told him everything, but then he said that there is nothing else that needs to be told, and saying that that's all the truth he knows, but he doesn't know anything else, what it means, how this all happened. He just knows he's seeing those vision over and over. Now, Jin was this close to belief in Jerome until he opens the notebook and saw another drawing, but he didn't fully finish. He just started trying to mark over this, and then he looked at Jerome and was like, okay, what about this fourth drawing? Jerome had to explain to Jin that in the future Jin gets ill, but he didn't tell him what the sickness is because he doesn't know. Now, Jin got very upset because he feels like because of this old vision thing, Jerome started having feelings for him. He feels like it's because of this that they're in a relationship, because if we retrace our brains and go back, Jin was the one that liked Jerome since they were 7. Ever since Jerome knows about this by seeing the future and reading his book, he knew that Jin likes him. But now Jin is worried because he thinks because of Jerome knowing the future of them being in a relationship is the reason Jerome wants to be in a relationship. And let's be honest, it does look that way, because if Jerome never had this vision, would they still be in a relationship? Would they ever be in a relationship? Would Jin be just secretly in love with his best friend? That's the thing that's very much worrying for Jin, because he feels like that is the problem. So they got into it. Well, he got cursing out in Jerome, and he told Jerome that maybe they need a break. Maybe that is what they need, because Jin is not wrong. Ever since Jerome started having vision, he really is starting to pursue Jin in a romantic way. I do feel it for Jerome. He's here trying to get signal from his boyfriend, and he is crying. While Jerome is doing that, Jin is in his room thinking about the times he had spent with Jerome and how much their relationship has developed. So Jin went over to Jerome to apologize for how he acted because he doesn't want this break. Now I have a question though. Jerome was sitting on this veranda, shining the light across the road. You're telling me you didn't see when Jin got out of his house and crossed the road? How were you blind? There's street lights. Anyways, they both confessed to each other that they are truly in love with each other, and Jin said it wasn't because of the visions, that's why. Let me say, Keen and C are both in their early 20s, and yet they still have that baby face. Makes me wonder how if they're gonna ever if makes me wonder if they're gonna have this baby face till like they're 30. I'm just saying, they're in their early 20s. I don't know. Maybe they will because look at C. This is definitely Jimmy and C right here. Jimmy and C, baby. You know, their break didn't even last 24 hours, but yet they're doing this. I don't blame them. But hey, they did bless Jin's room. Might as well bless Jerome's room. You gotta make. I don't know how the parents are not even aware of this. Like, when are they gonna tell the parents?